Okay. We'll have the little. Yeah.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. It is Carol C.C. Miller, your positivity trainer, peace activator, and global hugger, coming to you live with This is Life, Beautiful and Messy. And today I am so glad to have back a good friend, a doctor, and someone who is going to help us focus on rest and relaxation. So Dr. Sharyl Truty and I have known each other 8 years, 7 years?
Yeah.
8 years. And I've shared before in the last time that we had her on that we met outside of a concert venue listening to Rob Thomas play and became very good friends ever since then. She is a board member of Positive Focus and helps us with the health aspects of what we do, as well as just helping us with the general overall view of what Positive Focus is about. But today our conversation is going to, I'm going to ask you a question first before we get into the health and relaxation. You are an integrative doctor. So what does that mean? And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I brought a little piece of the ocean back here for you because I know you said, as part of our rest and relaxation. So while we couldn't do this out overlooking the ocean, we did bring a little piece of the ocean here for you. So, there's a little bit of ocean as part of our rest and relaxation. So.
Well, and Sharyl, if you're not on the Facebook feed, actually I have a frame up right now around us that is a beach setting. So it's perfect. You brought a shell into the equation.
Yeah. So what is an integrative physician? We get this a lot because there's also terms like functional medicine physician or naturopath. And so people are always, asking what is an integrative medicine physician. So integrative medicine physician is usually a medical MD or DO trained physician that is your traditional physician type, who has gone on to do extra special training in holistic and natural medicine. For me, that was, there's a program with Dr. Andrew Weil at the University of Arizona. And so what a integrative medicine physician tries to do is piece together conventional medicine and the best of natural and holistic medicine so that anybody who they see, they can kind of get a perspective from both sides and decide, which way they want to go. So we try not to lean particularly in one side or the other, but try to offer a really broad perspective to our patients. So
I just think that sounds like it's the best of both worlds that way. So it's, you can, and it's really about figuring out what works best for you. I certainly like to try, a more natural approach before I go into using medicines for whatever is going on. But I also know that sometimes medicine is important and necessary too. So, but today we're kind of, I guess, talking more about the holistic end of it, even though I'm sure it is medically proven too, about the importance of relaxing and what stress does to us. So I totally forgot to say at the beginning, and I am finding that I do it almost every time, is if you're joining us, please share in comments if you have any questions for myself or for Doc Sharyl. And as well, if you are in need of a hug to heighten your celebrations or lessen your sorrows, let us know where you are joining us from, and I will come in and give some virtual hugs after we get done with the show. Anne has joined us. I don't know, Sharyl, can you see the comments?
I can see them kind of float through.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what they do. So Anne has joined us, and she said she never takes time to rest and relax because she works from morning to evening and needs time to rest and relax. How often do you do housework? I'm not quite sure what that question is, Anne, but Sharyl, let's get talking about the importance of rest and relaxation and what it means to our bodies and our emotional and health as well.
Well, I think, maybe what Anne's trying to get at a little bit is you've got these other things that you have to do with your life, your basic needs that you need to meet, with getting your groceries done, getting your housework done. Maybe you have to balance that with taking care of children or with a job. So, how much can you fit this rest and relaxation sort of in your day?
Yeah.
And the reason why, like you said, I think it's a topic worth mentioning is that I think we forget that our bodies do very much need rest and relaxation as a part of their natural cycle. I think sometimes we discount it because we are able to just sort of push through things and push through being tired or being fatigued. And we don't often place a good enough emphasis on rest. There's often a lot of demands that we're balancing. But, especially in the sports medicine world, athletes know that if they're going to spend all this time with nutrition and training, that they also have to give equal amount of time to recovery, because it's really in the recovery, especially in the sports medicine literature, that change happens, that the body adapts and it becomes stronger. And it's during the rest period that happens. When we look at sleep medicine, we know that, getting a good night's sleep is, very important to the body. And when that doesn't happen, a lot of the body's functions begin to shut down, and signs of stress are all over the place. So there is a lot of medical science showing how important rest and relaxation is.
So what are some things that you do for rest and relaxation?
Well, I have to actually schedule it in my day, just like anybody else. There is just so much in your day. I have a 3-year-old son who's just full of energy and happens to get up at, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, on a daily basis, and then I work. And so, I really set for me aside, a little bit of time in the morning, or and definitely some time in the evening after my son's gone to bed, and that's my relaxation time. And I don't talk to anybody. I don't answer the phone unless it's an emergency. And that really is time that I've, carved out for myself. And, what do I do during that time? Well, it's whatever I think just rests and regenerates you. For me, it might be a little bit of meditation. It might be, going and sitting outside or taking a little walk for a while. TV often is what we use in our relaxation time, but I think that's good. But some of our relaxation time should be just purely, rest time away from even TV and phone and internet.
Oh, you just said the I word and getting away from the internet. But I think that it is, not that I do it, but I think it is important because I've seen, studies where they say about that watching TV or being on your phone or the internet, just that light is so activating to your brain. It's really, you may feel like you're resting because you're not quote unquote working watching TV, but your brain is still working because you're watching TV. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the light and like you said, your brain is still working, when you're on TV and you're trying to focus or think. And so again, it's trying to spend some portion of your day, and maybe it's going to be more on certain days than on other days, but trying to spend just more time just allowing that brain just some rest time.
Yeah.
There are different levels of consciousness, and this has been measured by measuring brain waves. And so if we're constantly way up high at the thinking, doing stage all the time, it doesn't allow our bodies just to get into some deeper aspects of being and living, which happen at some of the lower frequencies.
So do you have like even a recommended amount of time during the day, or is it just kind of long as you could even get 5 or 10 minutes of it? What would be your recommendations?
Well, I don't think, there's great science as far as, what optimal is, because I think it is different for everybody. I mean, certainly I have met people, and I'm sure you have met people that absolutely can function with less rest. And then there are more people that function with more rest better. So, we do know that as far as sleep goes, it's important for most adults to try to get at least 8 hours. I think a lot of people try to function on 5 or 6 hours, but trying to get a little bit more upwards of 7 to 8 hours is better for most of us when we talk about pure sleep rest. And then I think when it comes to just conscious rest, maybe I'll call it, like you said, even just 10 minutes a day of some meditation can make a big difference. So if that's all the time you have, I think that's great to do.
Yeah, Anne is saying maybe she should do less housework and spend more time with herself resting and relaxing. I definitely think adding resting and relaxation to your schedule is important, especially for me when I get super busy, which I usually am. I joke that my sister, this was years ago, I was whining to my sister one time saying, I need 2 more hours in the day. And her response is, you would fill it. I'm like, oh man, you're right, I would. But when I really start getting into that spinning of being so busy, then my brain is even more stressed on thinking about being busy. So
Right.
I do think that it's important to add that into your day, whether it's a meditation practice or even just, closing your eyes for a few minutes here or there, just to not really be focusing on anything. I work on a computer like 10, 12, 14 hours a day. So my eyes are tired from, just looking at a screen for so long. So it is good to get up and move around and do something different.
Yeah, and what happens if we short circuit our rest is that then when we're not in our rest mode, when we are in our work mode, but we haven't gotten the amount of rest that we need, our focus and our concentration, often is not there. So then we become less efficient. And so what you really usually find is that, if you can schedule rest, throughout your day, then when you're not resting, you're going to be more efficient and more focused, and it will probably is going to balance out. I know there are studies that even say, there's only a certain amount of time that you can really focus before needing to get up and take a break. And so, there's all kinds of protocols to even set timers and say, okay, after 45 minutes of focus, it's time for, a 10-minute break. So.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because we think we're being very efficient and effective because we're still working, like I just put in 6 hours doing one thing or whatever. But really our brains have checked out well before our hands have checked out of typing or whatever we're doing. So, I now have my mom in my head because she knows that I work on a computer all day. So she's you need to, every 20 minutes, look away for a few minutes, Carol, and things like that. So I'm like, okay, Doc Mom, I will do that.
Yeah, doc moms are great.
They really are. And when you were talking about rest earlier, I don't recall where I saw it, but it was a study on, because there are people who can do well. Not just survive, but actually can thrive with little sleep. But I don't remember the numbers, but I do remember it was a very minimal, like maybe it was 10% of our population that truly has that ability. The rest of us are sleep deprived. We may say, like, I know I'm sleep deprived. I still function okay and I work, but I know that I would like to get more sleep. I do several things that you would right now tell me not to do. Like when I wake up in the night, I check my email and I check Facebook and things that, is getting my brain waves activated. So that might be some of my issues. I don't
Well,
know.
and there's a lot of people that struggle with sleep, and we could even do a whole session on, sleep at some point in time. But, sleep is very behavioral. It's very cyclical. So, it's something that you almost have to, just like being able to go and exercise every day. If you go every day for, 2 months, it's going to be a behavior. It's going to be part of your pattern. However, if and the same thing with sleep, if you fall asleep at the same time every night, you do the same rituals, your body cues into those things. And so a lot of times, in order to get quality sleep, you do have to really develop a pattern of winding down at night. Otherwise, when you go to lay down, your body's just not going to do it. And I read a great thing about sleep is that part of it is surrendering to sleep.
Mm.
Just letting everything go and just sort of surrendering to sleep. And I think that's a very powerful way of looking at it, because often we're just thinking, and we're holding on to these emotions and these thoughts, and that's what doesn't allow us to fall asleep. And it's really just saying, okay, I'm going to put that away, and it'll be there tomorrow if it's important. So. I think that's and some people maybe need to journal, or maybe they need to write down that thought, so that they don't have the fear of losing it. But usually if it's important, you'll remember it in the morning. So.
Well, that just made me think of what Wayne Dyer used to say, and that the 5 minutes before you go to sleep are the most important of the day, because that's what you're taking into your dream state. So if you've just watched the news and seen, tragedy and, all the bad things that the news talks about, then you're taking that into your 8 hours of sleep. Or if you write down what you appreciate about your day and what you appreciate about that's coming forward, then you're taking that into your sleep. So we kind of are working while we sleep, right?
We are. Our mind falls into different layers and different levels of sleep, but the subconscious mind, is working. And there are people, there are different ways to actually sort of tap into that subconscious mind and use it to, its most effective capacity. And, some of that begins with meditation, and during the day. And again, that's manipulating the different phases of consciousness while you're not necessarily sleeping. So, there's in between states that go from fully awake, conscious, and actively doing something to, sleep. And there are stages in between. And so our subconscious mind can really be activated at some of those in between states.
Okay.
So,
and something that you said earlier that I think is really important that I didn't think about until you mentioned it, but you said time for yourself. Here, you're a successful doctor, you're married with a 3-year-old child, yet what you described your rest time wasn't playing with your son, it wasn't going to dinner with your husband. Your rest time was time for yourself.
yeah. And, I do all those other things
Right.
too. I mean, I obviously, try to carve out time to spend time with my son and, date night with my husband. And, those don't happen every day. And there are days when, things are better than others and work certainly takes over. But, sometimes all of those people are important to you and important to your life. But for your own self, you just need some quiet time, again, to rest and recover. Because as much as we love those people and we want to be with them, they can stimulate us emotionally, right?
Right.
Nobody can seem to push our buttons as well as, any of those that we love. And so, all of us need time just to be, in sort of a more quiet state where we can kind of process everything, I think. So,
So Go ahead.
And some people, they it needs to be a more active state. So some people find like a yoga practice or a Tai Chi quiet practice to be, very restful and relaxing. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be sitting in a chair staring, into space or, doing some kind of formal meditation. It can definitely be just taking a walk or, like I said, doing a yoga practice of some kind.
But it is more in a silent manner is what you're talking about. Because like I listen to music a lot now. I listen to it a lot while I'm physically working, but I also sometimes just listen to it. But that's probably still engaging my brain and not not quite the rest that you're talking about. Correct?
Yeah, well, we kind of, and I'm sort of perhaps incorporating a little bit of the mindfulness,
Yeah.
aspect of it. I mean, rest can be taking a walk and listening to music. That's okay as long as that's a, relaxing, way for you. But it's even more powerful to your brain if you're looking at, okay, I want my health and I want my, focus to be optimized. Practicing mindfulness really helps. And so, part of without doing mindfulness as a practice itself, and adding one more thing to your list of things you have to do, it's easy to incorporate that into things like your rest time where you just focus on one activity. And if you catch your brain wandering and thinking about what you need to do tomorrow, which I often do, or thinking about what happened, an hour ago, and just to
Yeah.
say, I'm going to let that go and bring my attention back to whatever the yoga pose I'm at, or to the surroundings that I'm walking in, or to my breath if I'm meditating. So,
Well, I always, I haven't said it as much in the last several years because I just focus on appreciation all the time anyway. But I used to say if I would get stressed out or something, I'm going to my happy place now. And in my mind, I was in Hawaii on the beach, palm trees with a drink with an umbrella. That was my happy place. So it was a moment of rest from whatever was going on.
and that absolutely, just bringing yourself to one place and one location and one picture in your mind. I mean, studies have even shown, in environmental, um, uh, I'll say mindfulness or health. Let's put it that way. They're surrounding yourself with nature. Our brains are really cued into nature, and I don't think that we realize how much they are cued into it. And so by just looking at some nature pictures or having nature pictures in your office, or taking a walk out in nature if you can, but I lived in the in the city, and sometimes that's just not possible,
Oh, you
but
had a
even
view of
just
the lake, so stop yourself.
this is true. This is true. But just being out in nature really is very restful and relaxing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of the reasons why at my office, we've decorated and we have background music with nature and that restfulness in mind, because you can walk into a room that has some nature pictures and automatically your brain just cues into a relaxation. So, it can be very powerful way, to bring more relaxation into your day is just by surrounding yourself with some nature.
I wonder if it has anything to do with, and I don't even know that there's a way to prove it or not, but because nature doesn't appear to get stressed out about anything, like it goes with the flow. And so I wonder if just when we are in nature or see nature, if that brings us back to that natural state of flow. Tina is joining us here, and I know that she and I have talked about it before. So if you remember what I'm talking about, I'd love for you to comment. And maybe you've seen it too, Sharyl. There's some place in Japan where you walk through these trees, and I can't remember, but it was like the trees almost like talk to you, like they're part of you. and that people actually go through this forestry area because of these specific trees. Let's see if Tina knows what I'm talking about, because I don't remember the exact story, but I remember liking it when I read it months ago. So what other kinds of tips would you say as far as, I mean, we really haven't talked about stress and what stress does to the body, but we have talked about, resting to decrease or release stress. But stress itself is a huge factor on our health. So the more that we can release and decrease it, the better we are, correct?
Yes. Stress, stress is, one of my favorite things that Wayne Dyer talks about is stress is a lot about perception. We've all, had years that we've grown up, and, certainly for all of us, we're certain behaviors, certain things we encounter, create this, I'd say, incompleteness in us that causes us stress. And so when we feel that stress, it's a real phenomenon that's happening in our body. That feeling that we're having is reflecting that our body is reacting to whatever that perceived threat is. And, I say threat, but in the body's world, it kind of looks at things as threat and non-threat. There isn't sort of an in-between. So even though it's maybe not a threat to your life, like someone coming to, stab you, it still is perceived as a threat. And so your body goes into a mode of reaction. Its job is to survive. And so that's when all of the processes are put into action to get you going and to, get you to survive this situation. So even though the threat is merely someone's, saying something that feels, threatening to you, it still causes that same reaction. And that reaction is fine and it's normal if it were only happening every little bit. But the problem is that in our world now, that happens a lot and many times throughout the day. And so with that constant level being activated, none of the balance, balancing systems get activated. That rest and relaxed system doesn't get activated. And so we're not ever able to really balance that very well. And so with that chronic activation, the body wasn't meant to be in that state forever. And that's where it starts to, begin to have the effects show. And that's everything from high blood pressure, affecting your hormone levels, everything from cortisol, which most of us know, a lot of people know as being a big hormone that's released when we're stressed, as well as, the sympathetic or flight or fight nerve response. And so, how can we, change that in our lives? And, I love the way Wayne Dyer talks about how, changing our perception can be one simple thing that we can do. And I know you talk a lot about that. And I think that is very powerful. So how do we change that perception? We may not always be able to change the situation we're in, but we can certainly change our perception. And just by changing our perception, we can stop that reaction from happening, which then makes our bodies feel better. So,
well, and I think it's go ahead.
And then the second part of that is then, trying to find time to induce or get moving that rest and relaxation response. So those are sort of the two keys. One, trying to get the system not activated in the first place. And two, to make sure that just as much as you're activating the system, to be activating the other system, which is the rest and relaxation system.
Well, and I was just going to say, I think it's similar to what you said earlier regarding sleep, that, it's pattern forming and habitual. So if right now things are very stressful for you for whatever is going on, work, personal, or something, it's just to start a practice of, like, I talk with my clients and things like, and I say, just stop for a moment, take some deep breaths and say, I choose peace. I choose peace. I choose peace. And it's just to recenter yourself, because our truth isn't stress. Our truth is love, but we get out of alignment with it, with everything that's going on. And I'm curious, and you may not know this or have seen studies, and I'm sure there are studies, I just haven't seen them. But ever since smartphones have come in, which, by the way, I love my phone. I'm very attached to my phone. It is with me 98% of the time. But because of smartphones, I mean, first it was just internet. So then once we got the internet, you could do work from home. You would check in your work emails in the evening, and you'd check in your work emails on the weekend. But then once smartphones came about and tablets, now you check when you're at the grocery store or even on vacation or whatever. So with the great benefit that technology has created for us, it has also created us more stressful situations too.
It has. But we also are in control. People. One of the biggest things that I've learned as a parent is you are in control. Sometimes my son Lucas seems like he's in complete control. Especially when he's crying and screaming that he wants something, and he knows that he's did something that's a consequence and a reason why he's not getting it. And so I have to remind myself that I'm in control here, not this 3-year-old. and sometimes I think our monkey mind, or our fear center of our brain, causes us to feel like we're not in control. And it's sort of seems like it's in control, but we are. And so, part of it is, why do we feel the need to check that? Because just as much as we press that email button on the phone, we could also press the app that's for meditation and relaxation. So there are both things on those phones. And so, part of that is just looking at ourselves and saying, hey, okay, maybe I do, because I check my email, and part of what I do is a concierge practice. And I absolutely, when I'm at the grocery store, I'm checking my email just like everybody else, or we're in the car. But, there are times when we can say to ourselves, okay, there's limits, right now. I'm not going to, because I checked it an hour ago, and I doubt anybody's having an emergency in the next 2 or 3 hours. It can wait for me to check it. Let me carve out some time not to check it.
Right. And I would say that I do that as well. And when I'm on vacation, I will check my email, but I don't respond to it. Like, I feel better knowing what I'm coming home to by checking, rather than,
right.
Shutting down for the week and then going in, that next week, having no clue what I'm facing for the week. So, but I definitely don't check it nearly as much when I'm taking a day off or that kind of thing. But I do still. People joke that if they haven't heard back from me within a couple of hours, they start to worry. And I was talking to my niece the other day. I'm like, because I live alone. I'm out with people all the time, but I live alone. I'm like, I'm going to be that person that you smell that they've gone, day. She's like, oh no. If I haven't seen you post on Facebook for a day, then I'm going to worry. I'm like, great. Thank you.
I know what you mean. And I think being connected is great. We're building these social connections, that transcend space. How amazing is that? We can have a relationship and a friendship with not necessarily being in the same city or the same town. So, I think again, there's a lot of wonderful apps that are fabulous at cracking sort of into the brain and helping us with relaxation. There's a concept of binaural beats, and you can find music and you can find apps even on your watch that tap into that sound and those beats that are relaxing and reassuring to our nervous system. And so, besides, we talked about sleep and we talked about carving, rest time into our lives. But, if we're really, got a lot going on and maybe sometimes that's difficult, I think that there's also body practices or exercises, that we can do, so that will also help with the relaxation response. And part of that can be getting a massage or getting some acupuncture done or, getting a healing touch activity done. Those are things that we also are, sort of done to us that can help the relaxation response if the thought of just sitting quietly in one particular place or doing something without, anything else seems a little intimidating.
Yeah, I like those suggestions. And I don't know that this is necessarily a relaxation practice, but for me, focusing on appreciation and just staying in that state of appreciating what's going on around me, what's going on with me and things also tends to help for me personally for calmness and things like that. Now my brain is still working and it's still functioning because I'm thinking about what I appreciate, but it's still a calmer sense than focusing on what I'm worried about happening next or what I need to get done kind of thing.
Well, and bottom line, you're not inducing that stress response.
Right.
Those thoughts are part of that rest and relaxation, response rather than the threat response. And so in a sense, yes, you're kind of staying away from that. And, like you said, maybe not as intense relaxation, but still a mode of functioning that isn't stressful to the body. So.
Well, I think it's important too that, especially if people are starting to practice mindfulness or take on, a sleep pattern or whatever that they're trying to incorporate into their life, it's a practice, and it takes, continuous practice and work to get it to be that habit. And I know for myself, it's like then if I do it for 2 days and then I don't do it, then I get mad at myself. So it's really important to be gentle with yourself through the process of creating this new habit. And I am a firm believer, if it's something that is good for you, yet you sit there and complain about it. Which actually I love asparagus, but I'm going to use this as an example. I hate asparagus. I know it's good for me, but I have to eat it, and I don't want to eat it, but I know it's good for me, so I'm going to eat it. But if I'm sitting there complaining the entire time, then it's not giving me as much health benefit as it could if I was actually, I'm really enjoying this. I know it's good for my body and that kind of thing. So I do think it's important on our mental state on what we do for relaxation as much as it is for our physical being.
Well, and absolutely. I mean, if we're, and I find this is probably the biggest struggle that I find is, okay, I've carved out this time, but, if I'm busy thinking about, something stressful that's happened earlier that day or that I have to do in 3 days, that kind of negates, my whole purpose of trying to relax, And so that's why most of us do some distraction activity, which I think is great. I mean, I do that too. I read a book so I can kind of go into another world, or we watch TV so we can go into another world, for a little while, because I think it helps to disengage the mind from that, situation that we're in. So I think all those things are good as well, but just like anything, to be balanced maybe with a little time of just, of introspection, is good. So.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and that can happen too in getting a massage or getting acupuncture, as we can, often be getting that and be thinking, about what we got to do next, and so, that's where that, doing a little bit of mindfulness with any of these activities, that's why mindfulness, I think, is become so chic now, in talking about it in the
Yeah.
holistic world, is because, really looking at it, a lot of times, that's not an easy task. And like you said, I think that's one of the things that I often, uh, for me, a lot of patients, when they come in with different medical diseases, I try to carve out at least a couple of minutes to mention, doing some type of relaxation activity or mind-body activity. And, we try to figure out what type works best for them. But like you said, the ones that have been shown to be very powerful at making an impact on your health, including mindfulness, meditation, and I'm going to include prayer, as part of that whole mindfulness and meditation. That sometimes takes practice. It's not something really easy to do, like you said, and so having patience with yourself doing it.
It seems like we wait for that illness or some big issue to come up before, oh, I'm going to pray, or, oh, I need to start meditating, or, those kinds of things, rather than making it a practice that will actually allow us a better chance not to have that medical issue come up because we've been practicing the mindfulness and getting the, not activating our stress in our bodies as much and things like that. So.
And we're all human. I mean, we're geared towards things that give us pleasure. We're going to naturally, move towards things that may cause us some uncomfortability. We tend to, hesitate. And most of us know with exercise, when we're done with it, we feel great and we're feeling good. But a lot of times it's hard to motivate ourselves to just get out the door. Well, because why? Because it's going to be uncomfortable for a little while.
Yeah.
Even if I don't care if you're an athlete and you're a performance athlete, that when you go out there to exercise, there's going to be some part of that exercise point that's going to be uncomfortable, and that's part of the challenge. But we're kind of wired to say, oh, hey, we're not, always, that's not a pleasurable activity. And it's the same thing with, some of these mindfulness activities or meditation, is that, there will be a little bit of uncomfortability with it because, the mind is constantly thinking and processing it. And when you take away distraction and you try to quiet things down, fears are going to sort of naturally bubble up as part of that. And, that's what's the uncomfortable part of that is when those things just sort of bubble up. But, as you do this practice, you realize that that's just a temporary, feeling, and it goes away with just by breathing through it. So.
Yeah, they're often feelings and not fact. That
right.
fearful feeling. I mean, sometimes there's fear that is actually fact. If you just given somebody a health diagnosis that's scary, that's a fact that there's a fear. But often our fear is caused by what we're afraid is going to happen, not necessarily what is happening. So I think those are some great tools to remember. And I also have found that I think people like to, we all do this. I do it. I would love to tell you I don't do it, but I do it, where we use time as an excuse. I'm too busy. I can't do this. I'm too busy. But you know what? Truly, if it's a priority, you find time. It's amazing how you can add mindfulness in or exercise in or whatever in reading that book that you want to read if it's truly important to you. But I have so many clients I have to see today. I don't have time for, going for a mile walk or whatever. It's an excuse, and I've used it. But at the end of the day, it's still a choice.
Right. And something is got to give. And sometimes, when you make the choice of rest or relaxation or to do some of these practices, it is your work that suffers, let's be honest, or maybe it might be, some of the family time, or maybe it might be that the house suffers. I mean, if you walk into my house, it is not probably the most neat house, deep dark secret. That's one of the things in my life that maybe suffers a little bit in order to be able to do some of the other things that I feel as a physician are more important. And sometimes, if we really look at our work, maybe doing that one last thing, while maybe it might make us look like an ace, it may not necessarily be all that necessary. So can we, maybe let that go in favor of something better for our overall health? Or maybe, we don't bring the homemade brownies, to the school event. We bring, the store-bought brownies because, maybe then we have a little more time to do some relaxation. So, sometimes it's just taking a look at some of that in our lives, too.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important because our bodies are always talking to us and letting us know. And so, when you get, I know for me personally, and knock on wood, I haven't had it for a few years, but when I get that big cough and that, sinus cold, it's because I have not stopped. And so my body is like, okay, Carol, you're stopping now. We're going to make you stop. We're going to give you 101-degree temperature and a bad cough. It's going to make you shut down for, 48 hours. In misery, instead of shutting down 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day in calm. So, but if we start to really pay attention and listen to our bodies, and I'm not that good at that, I think that would alleviate a lot of stress.
And it's easy for me to say, here that, what, as most physicians, this is what we should do, I mean, for me, it's back pain, and that's a very much a universal, I think a lot of people can relate to. But, when I'm doing too much and trying to balance too much, all of a sudden my back starts to hurt, and it starts to bother me. And that tends to be my reminder. And it's been an amazing journey for me with it to, really keep putting that connection together, because, oftentimes it's easy to say, well, I just have a bad back, but to really challenge myself to the notion that maybe my emotions and my stress level, is playing, a larger role than I care to admit.
Or at least that's the part we do have control over. I mean, maybe we genetically do have something, that we genetically have bad ankles or whatever it is, that we don't have control over the genetic issue of it, but we do have control over our thought process of it and not aiding the pain by think, well, this is just how it is. I was dealt with bad ankles or whatever. So our minds are super powerful. And can be used for health or can be used for illness.
Yes. And I think sometimes we don't, I think we haven't, I think we're beginning to truly tap into our mind's ability to heal our body. I mean, I think we often say that, but, to truly harness that power, I don't think we have a good appreciation of really how much that mind can do. But, it's not just it's probably not just wishful thinking that will do it. It's a lot of intention, and it's a lot of, it comes back to you, Carol. It always comes back to you. A lot of intention and a lot of positivity and a lot of, again, tapping into some of these exercises that get into that subconscious mind.
Yeah. Well, and I think just even what we've been talking about, how, incorporating rest and relaxation, how it sounds easy. Who doesn't want to rest and relax? But it really does take work, because we're so used to, feeling we have to work hard. And it's always interesting to me, even when I'm coaching people on positivity and mindset that way, it's work. I mean, you think, oh, being happy, it's like, well, it's easy, just be happy. Well, there's so many factors that go into happiness, although it's still your choice at the end of the day, regardless of what's going on in your life, it's still a choice. But it takes practice and it takes commitment that you're worth being healthy and you're worth being happy and abundant and all the good things that are your God-given rights to be. And the more that
Yes.
we own those and step away from fear. I mean, you were just talking about your 3-year-old crying. It just made me think of, I often use the example that fear is like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum. See me, see me. And love
Yeah.
is just there. Love doesn't need to throw a tantrum to be seen. But fear wants our attention, and it's that shiny object, and it can be very enticing. And that's just like overworking can be very enticing. So I do think I'm incorporating some rest and relaxation daily. And of course, then, taking a weekend off or taking a week vacation, although usually my vacation, I come back more tired than when I left for vacation because I like to pack a lot of action into them. But it's just important for us to take care of ourselves because you can't help others as much if you're not making sure you are emotionally and physically healthy.
Yeah, and to give yourself, that permission, and whether you have to use medical evidence, which hopefully I've laid out a little bit over this past hour, on truly how important that we see that rest and relaxation is. Again, the changes, stress, a little bit of stress is good. Life wouldn't be a lot of fun without
Right.
having some of that stress. But having too much is, again, never a good thing. And so, that's what the key to balance is all about. And so giving yourself permission to say, hey, I need to disengage. And we talk about fitting it in here and there, and we talk about fitting in hours here and there in the day, and maybe again that's all you can do is go schedule yourself a massage because that's the best thing for you. But like you said, we also need to take longer breaks,
Right.
and we need to find the time to do that because we do need to disengage for several days. So really giving ourselves permission to do that.
Yeah, so I would encourage anybody who's listening to, especially if your life is really busy and you feel like you're nonstop, maybe taking time each day is too much right now. So even put in your calendar 3 times a week, but actually put it in your calendar and a reminder that's going to pop up that for the next 10, 20 minutes, you're going to just be quiet. You're going to, relax if you need to listen to music or whatever, but do something specifically for your own health and rest and relaxation. And then grow it from there where you're going to be able to get it into. I know people now, I don't have a set meditation. I do meditate. I usually do guided meditations before I go to bed at night. But I know
Yeah.
people who do it their day is not complete if they did not meditate. It's such a part of them. And then they have a busy schedule, but their day is just not set without that. So it's a practice and a habit to get into whatever it is, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's just closing your eyes and humming to yourself. You know what's going to work for you because not everybody is set to be, to do yoga or Tai Chi or whatever. You just kind of need to figure out what brings you the most joy, and know while you're practicing to get there, it may not be joyful.
Yes, and just like anything, you can sometimes, like, I love to ski, but when I first started skiing, I mean, it was miserable. I was falling down all the time, and I was, wet and cold, and even maybe afraid of, twisting a knee and fracturing a bone. But after I stuck with it, it just got better, and now it's a wonderful experience that really puts me sort of in a zone. And, it's the same thing with, some of these other exercises. You may try it at first and say, I kind of like this, but then after you do it for a little while, you may be like, oh my gosh, this is difficult. But if you stick with it in a couple months, you might find that that's really, your thing. So, don't be afraid to experiment with different things,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and it was just like somebody was asking me yesterday on a different live. So the topic was different, but it's the same, where she was going to school for social work, but she didn't think that she would make a good social worker. Now, I don't know her background, so I don't know what her skill set is to be a social worker or not to be. But fear comes up, and it could be truly that she is not meant to be a social worker, and the experience that is showing her. But it could also be the unworthiness of being a social worker. So when you listen to yourself, like when you're doing an exercise, I would just still encourage you to give it, what do they say, 20 days, 21 days to make a habit. Give it some time to see if it's true, this isn't right for me, I don't like it at all, or if it feels fearful or frustrating because it's good for you, but you're afraid to do it. And the more you start listening to yourself, the quicker you're going to pick up if it's a factual fear that, no, I need, yoga is not for me, I'm going to try something else, or if it's just you don't feel like you can do yoga well, so you don't want to try. Because I've tried yoga and I wasn't very good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. But
and I know people are probably thinking like, oh my gosh, like you're making rest and relaxation so difficult. Why does rest have to be that difficult? All of a sudden you're telling me to start a practice that I may not like, and that's rest, But so it's kind of like, can I just sit and watch TV? And you absolutely can and should as part of your rest, but like anything else, the power is always in variety. And so, all of us face, as human beings, challenges with our health or with our emotions. And, these relaxation practices have been around for centuries. Yoga's been around for centuries. Tai Chi's been around for centuries. Meditation has, mindfulness. This is not something new, folks. This has been around forever. And why has it been around forever? Well, it's because, people have found that benefit, from it. And so, that's why it's a good tool to have in your variety of things as part of rest and relaxation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because you're right. We were kind of making it sound like it might be a challenging thing. I like the fact, because so many people, will even bash TV, don't waste your time watching TV. Now, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I do watch some, and it's really a personal choice. If that's something that makes you relax some and it's an enjoyable program for you, then do it. Everybody gets to decide themselves. Just like Sharyl was mentioning, on your iPhone, you can have really good apps on health and stuff. There's really good programming on TV too that you can choose to watch. I kind of like to watch the Animal Planet personally, but that's just me.
Yes. And I'm into, the sci-fi stuff. So, that's just me, but, all of us love TV. It's part of the, of our world. It is great to escape and to, relax as part of that. But incorporating some of these other things, can really make a difference in your health. I haven't seen any studies yet to show that watching TV on a regular basis, improves your health. If anybody's out there watching and they've seen those studies, please let us know. But
Dr. Oz probably has a study about if you watch his show, it improves your health.
Yes, probably a medical show I could see, but but there are studies that show some of these other activities. And why is that? Because again, as we talk, it cues into parts of the brain that, we don't normally do in everyday interactions. And if we can learn to use more of our brain, we can, maybe harness that power of healing without taking a prescription. So.
Yeah, I love that. Tina says she watches OWN Network, History Channel, Animal Planet, and National Geographic. So those are some good ones. She also did get back to me on the natural doctor. Nope, that's a different one. The Japanese practice is force bathing. It has been proven to improve health. So that's about the trees. I don't exactly remember.
And there's something similar like labyrinth walking, and I wouldn't be surprised if forest bathing is similar. It's a path through, a group of trees where the sound and the vision and all of that cues into the center of the brain that finds those things very healing, because we are so attuned to nature. And labyrinth walking, I wish there were more labyrinths around. I think that's a really cool thing that I, discovered doing some of my training on, walking. It's essentially walking a maze and getting yourself, immersed in that puzzle and that walking, and how that can calm the brain.
Yeah, and Tina's saying her natural doctor uses touch and massage, and also talks about the importance of drinking water to stay hydrated. We can cover that one on another one, because you and I could talk a little bit forever. So is there anything in closing you'd like to make sure that we covered today?
Well, I guess I would just summarize. I think remember that rest and healing is important for your physical health. I think most of us know that it's important for emotional health, but really realize that it needs to be right up there with exercise as important for your physical health. And that, the first component is sleep, and really, trying to get that fixed or trying to get as much as you can. And then the second part is, finding rest and every day. And that can be a combination of a little bit of escape with TV and things, and maybe gaming or something like that. But it also should be, and it also can be, some thing like massage or healing touch or acupuncture, where it's an activity that you get physically done to you as part of your rest time. But also the third part and third component of that wakefulness rest, it's good to try to do a meditation or a mindful or a prayer activity, and picking one of those or yoga to incorporate into your life. I think you'll find the benefits to be immense. So.
Excellent. And Sharyl, you were located outside of Jacksonville, Florida, and you have a Facebook page, so we will post that. I'm hoping to get her on some type of webinar where we can discuss this in more details too, not necessarily just this, but integrative medicine as a whole. And I'm going to have her back next month. We don't know the topic yet, and we don't know the date yet, but she's going to be a monthly guest here on This Is Life, and helping us figure out the messy and enjoy the beautiful. So thank you, Doc Sharyl, for being here.
Yes, please, check out my website at balancedphysiciancare.com to find out more about my practice, whether you're local or non-local. I post a blog on a fairly regular basis, and come check out what we're trying to do here. Thank you, Carol, so much for having me as a guest. It's really great to get an opportunity to just sort of spread the word about health and healing from a positive aspect.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you being here with us and being part of the Positive Focus family and board. So we will talk soon. I don't know yet who my guests will be next week. It may just be yours truly, but we will be back on Tuesday and on Thursday of next week. So check it out then, noon Central Time. It's 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And go out there and do something to relax today and to rejuvenate yourself and to add a little bit of kindness to the world. We will talk soon. Again, remember, you matter. You matter to me. You matter to the world. And most importantly, you matter to you. Go out there and have a great day. Bye for now. Bye, Sharyl.
Bye-bye, Carol.